Hey, movie fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Uncharted Media Podcast. This is episode 214, also known as the What the Heck movie news. Why did you dry up so much? We have 3 news topics to talk about this week, and none of them are the Academy Awards because Josh, I know for a fact, did not watch it. He watched he watched the acceptance speeches of the people that he loves. I'm sure that's how that went down. I watched it. It was a good show, minus Jimmy Kimmel's attempts at humor, which just fell flat. It was a fine award show. Most of the right people won. Now we have some other issues about people that were nominated, but that's a whole separate issue. That's a whole other horse that we've already beaten to death numerous times. But Everything Everywhere All at Once took home so many awards, and so much of the cast won awards. You got Kehu Kwan, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michelle Yeoh, the Daniels for writing and directing. The whole cast for Everything Everywhere All at Once is so incredibly strong. So we're like, let's look at some other movies this week with incredibly strong cast top to bottom, like best movie ensembles of these movies that we're going to talk about could have a theoretical like one main character, but by and large it is a group of people that make the movie what it is. You'll see what we're talking about when we get into it, but it's not just like the Batman's really good, that counts as an ensemble piece. That's a Robert Pattinson vehicle that just happens to have other really good casts, but like, spoiler alert, the Suicide Squad, that type of thing of it is multiple people that get to shine in this ensemble piece. But before we get into all that and our incredibly slow movie news this week, Josh, how you doing tonight?
Are we chilling like a villain, my dude? It's been a good week so far.
That mic sounds so much better this week.
Yeah, I sometimes I don't understand like why. Because it's funny for those some behind the scenes stuff. Like I don't change my settings. Like I don't like nothing, and I'm not doing anything that would automatically change settings. So like it changes randomly, and we're like, okay, I don't. Why that's a thing. Why is that doing that?
I was just waiting for the moment. And Josh will know exactly what I'm talking about. But there's this great moment on Markiplier's podcast where they're all sitting together for the first time in many, many years, and their audio is just garbage. Like it just sounds like the mic is like 50 feet away, but they're talking for like 5 to 10 minutes while Mark just messes with it. And all of a sudden, from way off in the distance, you just hear, "It's not even plugged in!" Like, and I felt that in my soul, and I just feel like anybody that has done any form of tech stuff just goes, "Ugh, that's so accurate." Like, I was doing something with lighting a week or two ago, and I could not for the life of me figure out why the spotlights weren't working. And so I come back next week, and somebody's just like, "Yeah, the wrong input was on." I'm going, gosh. That checks out.
You really want your brain to hurt. My camera's not doing the glitchy thing this week either, and I haven't changed a single thing.
Josh, you watching anything in this chaotic week?
I've actually I'm obviously the first 2 episodes of Mando. Fantastic. I'm excited to where we're going. Episode 2 definitely has a good moment of like, oh no, like that's good. I'm excited finally. Season finale of Last of Us happened. Cried. Or like a good chunk of that first section.
Let's get into it since we're light on news. As someone that knew the story of Last of Us up to a certain point, like you played the game up to a certain area, as someone that was going into more or less the back half of the game completely oblivious, how was your viewing experience for the season finale?
So it was interesting because I actually wanted to bring this up with you because I saw some people say that the show definitely, if you've played the game, feels like it's rushing into the end. It doesn't necessarily take its time sometimes, but I don't necessarily agree. But then I haven't played the games a whole lot. So like you said, as someone who's not played the back half of Last of Us, I loved the finale. I love that even at the end, I'm not sure of if certain decisions were right, not just by Joel, but by the Fireflies as well. And like that first like 15, 20 minutes, my heart is just like broken. Like, gosh, like I have no idea what's coming, but I love that they're having this moment. Um, Gosh, it's so super good, super good. Bella Ramsey is. I'm always more impressed with actors who are able to convey a lot, but in a like very subtle and nuanced way. It's not a lot of big acting, and then in that moment, in the right before they get attacked, I guess, where her and Joel share that moment of it's just so impressed by them. Bella is so good. I think there's a lot of people that because their person didn't get cast, they've kind of just continued to kind of count them out, and I'm not really okay with that. But like, gosh, what a good finale! It definitely makes me very, very curious, knowing very, very sparse details of Last of Us 2, and it sounds like they're going to split Last of Us 2 into 2 seasons, which is
At minimum.
Which is a good call. I think you could have probably split the first season maybe into two seasons, maybe, but I think it would have felt stretched a little bit. I like the 9 episodes that we got. I'm pretty happy with season 1. I don't know about you.
More my just OCD of why 9 episodes, 8 or 10. People
Yes.
like, this is just weird that it's 9. For me, it didn't feel like we rushed to the finale just because in the game it kind of rushes, not really rushes, but all of a sudden you're just like, oh, all right, we're here now. And then we won't go into specifics for those. I haven't seen the episode yet, but Joel at the hospital, that plays out more or less exactly the same. Of it is very much just like a once information is get revealed, then it's immediately this storyline, and then everything else plays out how it's supposed to. I'm curious though, having now seen the finale, does this make you want to go back and play the first game? And does it make you want to go play the second game, or do you want to wait until the season 2 actually comes out?
It definitely makes me want to actually go through, take the time, sit down and play through the first game at least. I might not touch the second game until after the second season.
That might be smart. That might be smart.
Yeah, and part of that is because of your discussion with me and stuff like that, of how like there are some things about the second game that kind of feel out of order, and I feel like I want my interaction with that section of the story to be somewhat way more fresh than me going into the first season. I think a lot of people are maybe not appreciating as much like the ability to go into this show without playing the game, which is pretty cool. It's been a really fun experience, honestly.
Yeah, I like the finale. I was curious where they were going to leave it, but I think they leave it in a really perfect spot. And once again, they make mild tweaks to the original source material, but tweaks that are for the better, because it's been a while since I played the game, but I do not recall at all the whole time heals all wounds scene.
Like, that line.
Like they do eventually have like a moment of just like, okay, we're surrogate family here, but it's never like outright spelled out like it is in the show. But how the show does it, I'm just like, oh, it's so good. But yeah, people complaining about the finale, like saying it's rushed. I get it, but at the same time, the game is kind of rushed in the same way. If it just kind of ends. But again, without going to spoilers, I like that the show ends how it does, because that's basically how the first game does, of ambiguous as hell, basically, of like, how are these decisions going to come back into play? And that's the world of The Last of Us. Decisions do have an impact eventually. My only minor criticism is, and maybe this is a deliberate choice, but once Joel and Ellie get like on good terms in the show, Joel becomes very much a different character. He's like very jovial and just like a very much a different dad type. It's very much almost too much of a drastic character change, whereas in the game, he's still a grumpy old curmudgeon, but he's a grumpy old curmudgeon with a soft spot for Ellie, not so much of like
Yeah.
it was a very much a it was almost a too big of a character swing of just like, hey, let's do this, no, that person, you would like this person. We're just like, calm yourself, dude. Like, I get that you're on good terms now, but you kind of overswung, I think, a little bit.
I definitely feel like it's a closer to the Joel from the Joel that we see at the beginning of the season, the one before the fall of mankind and all that. It definitely is way closer to that Joel, but I am attributing some of that kind of overcorrection by him to him knowing that Ellie doesn't completely believe him on what happened, and he knows that when this lie comes out, because I know that there's no way that he thinks that she's never going to find out. There's no way he thinks that. He's very, very aware that this is going to blow back in his face, and he's not sure how so to me, that's how I feel like that's the overcorrection that we're seeing. But I get, again, we'll have to wait till season 2 to find out.
You watching anything else?
I will say, I think, and I want to say this because it was my one, like, I don't think the Fireflies are in the right either in that scenario.
And the game is ambiguous too.
I don't. Yeah, to me, not telling Bella like what's actually going to happen is way worse. Like, it doesn't necessarily matter that Ellie is going to be like, it doesn't matter that they feel like they know how she's going to respond. Not giving her that choice is worse.
Yeah. So it does follow the game in that Joel is not 100% right, but the Fireflies aren't 100% right either, of like not telling Ellie, but also, and I wish the show touched on this more, because the game at least hints at it, and Joel brings up a great point of, do you know for 100% fact that this will work? Because they assume it will. And I kind of wish they dwelt on that more, but who knows? There could be more ramifications for that in season 2 or season 3, because as we'll talk about in news later, there's going to be multiple seasons, and I think that can go a long way to fixing some issues people have with season 2. But Josh, you watching or reading anything else interesting?
I am still trucking through Light of the Jedi as far as reading goes. I only meant to watch 1 or 2 episodes to check it out, but I watched the entire first season of that 90s show. I am thoroughly impressed that it is both exactly like that 70s show, but like deeper, I guess is what the word I want to use. I was telling my brother who watched it with me, it's very, very interesting that you can absolutely pinpoint every single character of like who they're quote unquote supposed to be, the character archetype from the first show, but like at the same time, they while they are those character archetypes, their place in like the quote unquote hierarchy of the friend group is not the same, and which is like super fascinating to watch. The characters are interesting. It ends in a way that I was actually low key like upset that we have to wait for a season 2, because it's only 10 episodes, which is surprising. But also it's a Netflix show, so it's not surprising. Kitty and Red are perfect as always. There's one of my favorites is Red gets hoodwinked into buying a massage chair, and he like is sitting in the living room, just like in the massage chair, being the nicest person on the face of the planet, and Kitty's like super suspicious the entire time. Like, I don't like this, Red.
I wouldn't either.
Yeah, it's terrifying. What about you? You watching anything?
Watching stuff. I think if I have been or not. Caught up on Mando, caught up on Last of Us.
Yeah.
The reason I haven't been watching anything is because I've been hard at work, and I finally finished the Smallville video, the Smallville retrospective of me looking back on the 10 seasons of Smallville, the highs and the lows, and basically my consensus thoughts on the show. So that look out for that video. Nice full in-depth video that'll be dropping on Friday. So I hope to be catching up on stuff this weekend to watch, like Shazam: Fury of the Gods. Superman and Lois drops tonight when we're recording this, so I'll probably catch that sometime tomorrow. Season 3 premiere, looking forward to that. And then Heather and I, because I have my car again, we went out just because I have freedom again. So we went to our local mall, which they have a new Funko Pop store, and I was just like,
there you go.
I'm only buying 3. I'm only buying 3. I'm only buying 3. I could have bought so many more. But then we went to Barnes & Noble. For those that are unaware, Barnes & Noble is this limited edition thing called a bookstore. It's becoming an endangered species. But initially, I was going to buy a comic book called Robin and Batman, and then another one that Josh has a slight love affair with called The Last Ronin.
Dude, it's so good.
I almost bought both of those, but as I was on my way to check out, another book comes across my eyesight, and they only have one copy of it, so I was going, oh, I need to pick this up, called The Imagineering Story. It's the same person that did the Imagineering Story documentary on Disney Plus about the history of the Imagineers at Disney, but in book form. And I'm going, yes, that is absolutely your alley, and I can absolutely see you being like, I do want these comics, but this is really up my alley. Go look at that. Even more so, I was gonna buy those other 2 comic books, but if I didn't have to poop, I would have never run into the Imagineering Story.
Nice. I've got plans. I've already created a little thing. I got some books that are coming in on Friday, because I'm down to finally down to like 1 book in my TBR. So I was like, no, this can't happen. I need more.
Let's get into some news, shall we? Because there's not much of it this week, but
no.
Michael B. Jordan made a big splash with his directorial debut, Creed 3. Well, if anybody makes any form of splash in the entertainment industry these days, they immediately get their own franchise. And that's essentially what's going to happen here, as MGM and Amazon want Michael B. Jordan to create a Creed verse. I'm just going, oh, that could either be very good or really stretching yourself there. Insert Creed the band joke here of like MGM wants Michael B. Jordan to take them higher or something like there. I don't know. That's a Creed song, right? That's the one Creed song everyone seems to know.
So good.
Josh, have you seen Creed 3 yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, I was just clarifying.
we were talking a little bit before we got on, and I was like, I really have been lacking with my in-theater viewing, and part of that's just because I'm busy and broke. But like, it's getting to that point now. Like, there's going to be something almost every single week, at least one movie coming out every single week now through the end of the summer. So like, I'm going to have to kick my theater viewing up.
So I was just wondering how much like spoiler barriers I need to put up for Creed 3, but even then there's not a ton of spoilers here. But while Creed 3 is not my favorite in the franchise, I think it is a very strong debut for Michael B. Jordan as a director. And I joke, but I do think he's a smart guy to lead up this franchise. He, if nothing else, has shown that he's an incredible student of film, both in terms of learning from Sylvester Stallone being on the 2 Rocky movies with him, but learning from other influences like anime was very much an influence for Creed 3. But given the first 2 Creed movies and definitely Creed 3, I can actually see a universe here. I know some people be like, you can't have a Rocky universe without Rocky. And be like, I don't really want him to die in the ring, because that's what would happen if Sylvester Stallone comes back. Like, his story is done. It was wrapped up beautifully at the end of Creed 2. We don't need more Rocky, as much as that sucks to say. But there's different avenues that we can go now. Like, do I agree with the decision to age up Creed as much as they did in between 2 and 3? I don't know if I fully agree with that, just because you jumped ahead like 7 years. So now Adonis is at the end of his career. But then again, that never stopped Rocky in 3 and 4 when he's clearly supposed to be over the hill.
Quote unquote end of career.
Yeah.
Yeah, as someone who hasn't seen Creed 3 yet, even now, like even after 2, especially after 2, I'm intrigued to see what else this boxing world holds. I would love to go see do like a Victor movie and see what the events of after 2 would be great. I think there are little tiny bits and pieces that would be really interesting to see, I think, here. It would be interesting if I was gonna say if they connected to Southpaw somehow, but I'm taking that back.
Jake Gyllenhaal's too
Southpaw's
busy with
fine,
he's too busy with
yeah,
that Roadhouse movie.
yeah, Roadhouse. But yeah, I can absolutely see there being like, I don't like the whole idea of like a connected universe for everything, but I do like the idea of stories that all happen in like the same universe. They don't necessarily have to be connected. Uh, yeah, it just even like, because we joked. I saw you tweeting about Universal bringing back the Dark Universe trademark, and I was like, oh no, everything doesn't need to be in a interconnected universe, guys. We can just do movies. Like it's fine.
You brought up Creed 2, and as far as I know, I thought there were plans to do a Victor Drago
Yeah.
spin-off movie, and then that's when Stallone really just like jumped the shark and became a bitter, grumpy old man, and he like tweeting pictures of like headless film executives. I'm just going, okay,
Yeah.
maybe you probably should not be attached to this franchise anymore. Victor is top of my list for if we are doing spin-offs for Creed, just because mild spoilers here. Drago does make a quick cameo in Creed 3, and he has his own problems with Jonathan Majors' character.
Oh, interesting.
They don't come face to face, but Jonathan Majors has an impact on Drago's career, so to speak. To which I'm just going, even before that all happened, there is an interesting B storyline here with Victor Drago that they kind of hint at actually in Creed 3. I'm just going, no. Finish that story. That's interesting to me. But even then, I was interested in a Victor Drago story after Creed 2. They did such a good job with that of going, I very much care about the Dragos, of maybe we get some more backstory of what happened to Ivan after Rocky 4, in between Rocky 4 and Creed 2. What was it like for Victor growing up as he's now going for the title at some point in his career? I think could be really, really cool because he didn't get the title against Adonis, but he's still out there, and Adonis is more or less kind of too old to pursue the belt anymore. Victor was an incredibly relatable character. Two projects that apparently have been bandied about, though, in this Creed verse, so to speak, is supposedly they're working on a Creed anime series, and I'm going,
Yeah.
Interesting. That does not surprise me in the slightest, with Michael B. Jordan always talking about how much he loves anime, which I'm going, that's so funny. You do not look like you're an anime fan, but he gets so excited about it in interviews that I'm going, good for you, man. It's just interesting because that's just a unique and iconic art style and film style that I'd be very curious to see how that translates to an American audience. And the other one that I'm just going, okay, I can get on board with the anime one. This other one's a bit of a stretch of supposedly this is just in the blue sky phase of like, it could be an idea of having his daughter Amara have her own TV series. And I'm going, cool, but she's 7. Like, if this was like teenager, I would still be a little worried that we're getting too close to Rocky 5 territory. But I'd be at least curious to see what Michael B. Jordan does with it. Creed 3 shows that Amara's got a little bit of a fight in her. Like, she will be a fighter someday. But she is 7. Does she need a spin-off movie right now? Like, there's others, like Victor's story, I think is more pressing of like, I want a Victor story. Or honestly, I'd rather have a Bianca story. I think she's an interesting character that I would really be curious to see what direction that takes.
So I got you. We're gonna go with his daughter. We're gonna go do a Karate Kid movie with Creed's daughter, but in the Creed verse. I got you. See, connected those dots.
And because everyone keeps asking for it, she fights the granddaughter of Clubber Lang from Rocky 3 because people, for some reason, cannot let Clubber Lang go. They're like, well, Rocky fought him, going, yeah, so? Like,
The story's only interesting if it connects back to Rocky, guys. Don't you know?
well, Creed 2 is my favorite of the Creed movies, so maybe?
I mean, yes, but I don't think it's my favorite either, just because of Rocky's connection. I think it's all about Creed and the Dragos. Like, Rocky's cool and he's a fun little side dish in that movie, but I don't think he's the reason. The connections to him is why I enjoy it so much.
So, as a whole, I think this is an interesting idea. I'm just curious to see what Amazon and MGM want to do with this. I always keep forgetting, though, that Amazon owns MGM. Amazon, I'm sure, is just looking for franchises besides Lord of the Rings that I don't know how much actual creative control they seem to have over Lord of the Rings anymore.
Yeah.
But I love anything Rocky and Creed, so sign me up for more in this franchise. It all just depends on the quality. Can we maintain? We're 9 movies in. Can we maintain the quality? That will always be the question. Speaking of, can it maintain the quality? The Last of Us 2, well, The Last of Us Part 2, is obviously the next continuation for the Last of Us HBO series, but The Last of Us Part 2 was kind of a big game. So thankfully, Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, the showrunners for The Last of Us TV series, have confirmed that The Last of Us Part 2 will be split into multiple seasons for the TV show. And I'm just going, good. Because the first Last of Us is like maybe 10 or 11 hours. Like, it's a good sized length game. But Last of Us 2 is like double the runtime of the first one. So, and it's also much denser. Like, as much as the first one could really just be boiled down to man takes surrogate daughter figure across the country and sees all the depressing stuff in the world. In the second one, without delving too much into spoilers, you get like other factions, you get some more government control in there, you get different groupings, as well as a bunch of new characters and character dynamics there's a lot of setup that needs to happen. It's just a much more dense game than the first one. Now, they've also said that they're going to make some changes to Last of Us Part 2. They're not going to be the changes people are hoping for, but then again, there was changes in the first season of Last of Us, and for the most part, I think most of them worked incredibly well. I know a lot of people have issues with Last of Us Part 2. I don't have nearly as much of an issue as other people, but I do still think that there's some problems with it, and it's more not from the stuff that happens in it, but how the stuff happens in it structurally. Things are drastically out of order, but the problem is the people that made the game seem to think if you have any criticism of the game, you're just a hater. And I'm going, no, you wrote yourself into multiple corners, but if you just write it this way and don't do Yoda speak here, it flows a lot better and you can get the results that you were kind of hoping for. So I think, given how this is going to be TV as opposed to game, I would not be surprised if Greg Mazin, the guy that did Chernobyl, one of the co-showrunners with Neil Druckmann, comes alongside Neil, who wrote the Part 2 for Last of Us, and goes, okay, I like what you're going for with the game, but here's how I would tweak it for television format, and here's how we can maximize it to be 2 or 3 seasons. So, Josh, as someone that hasn't played Last of Us Part 2 and kind of knows just only a little bit of it, does it make you excited that we're getting at least 2 seasons for Part 2? What are your general thoughts about it being split up?
I think that's the right call. It is, from my understanding, almost a double, if not triple in length game in comparison to the first one. Excuse me. But like, so to me, it makes sense. It's going to be a lot more dense. There's going to be a lot more going on. With that being said, I think the key event that is one of the reasons people hate the second game is going to happen at the end of next season. I don't
It
think they
should. It
yeah,
should.
I absolutely think it should. I think it is a big thing that you build to. Um, what is interesting to me, and while the more and more I think about this in the context of like, okay, cool, so we're going into another, the second game that, like you said, has a bunch of factions, has a bunch of different governments set up throughout the country, let alone the world. Um, to me, what's interesting is the thought from the Fireflies that having a cure for the the cryptoid, kind of virus, quote unquote, is the thing that's holding the world back. But like, I think for us, we've through season one, we've seen that that's not necessarily true. That humanity is still very much in its own way, and I really hope that while I think the event still needs to happen, while I still think that Ellie coming to that conclusion in anger is still absolutely the right choice for her, I do hope that we explore the kind of emotions behind it in a much more less nuanced, well, maybe a more nuanced way of Joel not necessarily being wrong, but not being right. So
The other thing is, there's some big events that happen, but they happen towards the beginning of the game that I feel like so much of the game gets hurt because that event happens so early that they have to go back and retroactively have a whole bunch of flashbacks to explain said events, as opposed to if you're doing it on TV, they don't have to be flashbacks. They could just be a natural progression of a timeline instead.
Yes.
And then also certain characters, one of their big flaws that people have with them is The Last of Us asks really big, dense, heavy questions about morality and about ethics for most characters. But there's one character that the game kind of wants you to forget that the standard applies to them as well, of just like, no, you can't make us think this thing about this one character when in reality this other character is doing the exact same thing, but you don't want us to think about the morals of what they are doing because we're supposed to be emotionally invested in both characters, and you can't do that if you're thinking about the morals of both characters. I'm just going, if we from the get-go put all characters up for emotional evaluation, so to speak, of just like all of us are on equal footing. I think there's certain characters that are too protected by the creative group that have just like, I want to like this character. I see what you've got on paper is a good idea, but they need to be flawed, and they're not flawed in the game at all. And I think that hurts the game. But how the show has operated, at least for the first season, the characters are so incredibly well-rounded, and they've made tweaks where necessary to make characters more well-rounded, just more engaging characters. So I think the whole point of Last of Us 2 is seeing both sides to every situation. And the first season did that incredibly well. So I have more faith in the creative team of Neil Druckmann. I think is a good writer that no one could say no to for Last of Us 2 because of the success of Last of Us 1. But with him working with Mason, I think Mason can come alongside and be like, good ideas on paper. That's your first draft. Let's just iron out the kinks a little bit for your second draft, and we're on the right track. Again, Last of Us 2, I think, is a good narrative on paper. It's just how they organized it and how certain characters almost have the Rey Skywalker syndrome of being too perfect and too good at given things, and we're not asked to evaluate them in the game, that I hope and I think that will get remedied. I just think it's great that we're splitting this up because of how dense part 2 is, and certain events need to breathe more than they do. But also, if you think the first one shows us kind of peaking, and there might be optimism in the world and with our characters, that's The Last of Us for you.
I'm excited for the set for just the next season in general. I'm excited that we're getting at least 2 more seasons. I definitely, to Neil's credit, it is not an easy task to follow up the first game. To Neil's credit, he probably wrote that and did two or three drafts, solidified it, and then had to send it in. And then there was like 2-3 years of actual production work through the game and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if he caught all of the issues and wishes he could go back and change it. But because of how production works in video games, there's just, there's a certain point in which it's too late. Sorry, you can't change it. So to Neil's credit, I wouldn't be surprised if he is aware of its flaws and is now.
Oh, he gets defensive about the game.
Yeah. So, but we'll see what happens. I'm excited though.
Moving on to our last news topic of the day. Warner Brothers Discovery claims that they're the home of all DC stuff. Well, unless they still need some tax write-offs, in which case they'll just sell off parts of DC, which I think are super, super bizarre, as the DC animated show Batman Cape Crusader, which some of us were really looking forward to, myself included, is now going to Amazon. Amazon has now acquired the distribution rights to it, and they've also been guaranteed at least 2 seasons of the show. And I'm going, well, at least it's not going to Netflix. It would have been canceled after 1.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was always super high on Batman Cape Crusader just because of the people that were involved with it. The art style looked a lot like a continuation of Batman the Animated Series. Also, I grew up in the era that there's always been at least an animated Batman show at some point on TV, whether it was Batman the Animated Series or Josh's favorite, The Batman, or one that I would maintain is one of the most underrated, Beware the Batman. I think that art style is not for everyone, but I think that got canceled way too soon, and it was actually doing some interesting things with lesser known characters like Professor Pig. Yeah, this is an interesting move, to say the least. I thought Warner Bros. Discovery said that they were done selling stuff off, but I guess not. But hey, at least we're getting 2 seasons of this, and I'm happy that it's on Amazon because Amazon lately, when it comes to animated superhero stuff, has a pretty good track record. Granted, I'm basing that entirely off of just one show, but Amazon's mature superhero output, we'll put it that way, has been pretty solid lately, and I'm basing that off of not 1 but 2 things, so doubling down on the very small field of reference there.
3. I think you could. Well, actually, I don't think Preacher's on Amazon. Now that I say that out loud. Anyway,
I don't know what Preacher's on actually. Is that was that AMC?
I think it was on AMC. It's at least started on AMC. I know that much. But yeah, like that's the only reason I know I clumped those together is because that's also happened to be the projects that Seth Rogen and his team have worked on. And it's all the projects I bring up every time somebody complains about the TMNT stuff. Anyway, but yeah, no, I'm with you. It is a little weird because I thought one of Zaslav's big things was to have everything under one tent pole. Sure, okay, whatever. But you got to make money somehow, I guess. That's what you get for buying a company that's so egregiously in debt that you've got to do tax write-offs everywhere, for better or for worse. But yeah, at least it has a home. That's my perspective in this. I think it has a home. We're getting at least 2 seasons. Cool. Why not? You and I were both excited about the art style. It looks cool. A new Batman show is going to be, fun no matter what we do. Sure. Why not?
I'm more just wondering how far along in development was this show before it got sold off? And if now the Amazon is in charge, does that change the creative direction at all? I'm inclined to say no, and Amazon will just be hands off. But not that Warner Bros. Discovery would make it like more kid friendly or make it adult oriented. I'm just curious what Amazon will do to it and just what stage of development we're currently at with it, because if it looks like we've used this picture before when we talk about the show, it's because this is the only picture that exists for Batman Cape Crusader, because they announced it and we've really heard nothing about it ever since. Alongside that Superman animated series where he's like a young reporter working at the Daily Planet with a whole bunch of other people. I've heard even less about that one. I would not be surprised in the slightest if that show quietly got canceled because it might sound a little too similar to one James Gunn's Superman story that's he's coming out with, like a young Superman working at the Daily Planet. Those are exactly some of the words that James Gunn has used to describe his upcoming movie. Yeah, I just don't know if this will change the creative direction. I'm just hoping we get some news about this soon because I'm excited for it. I like Batman animated stuff. I know this is going to piss some people off, but I kind of hope not that it's kiddie, but is that it's all ages appropriate, because I think that's important for the next generation of comic book fans. And Batman as a character in particular has been guilty of this, needs to be only enjoyed by the 13 plus crowd of Batman. As the years have gone on, has only become a darker and grimmer, more bleak character. And I think Batman is a versatile character enough that you need to invest in the next generation of fans, or you're going to have what I'll call JCPenney syndrome of your fan base will literally die off because you haven't done enough to invest in the next generation, so to speak.
That's a good reference. I like that a lot. Yeah, but no, I agree. I mean, you can only depend on like adults showing their kids shows that they grew up on so much, because I think as much as I love a lot of those older animated shows, I don't know how well they've aged. There's still some language in them that doesn't exactly age well. So we will see. I think to my thought process is that this is already pretty far in production, and Amazon is more just like, yeah, well, we would love to have them to be able to show this on our platform because we need content. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that if that was the case. So, which is all fine by me.
As per usual, this episode is sponsored by TeePublic, your one-stop shop for all things Uncharted Media merch, whether it's tinfoil hat, t-shirts, mugs, hoodies, whatever you want with the Uncharted Media logo or other fantastic designs that we've got. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us wherever you're getting your podcasts, whether it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, and as always, subscribe to us on YouTube. Share us with your fellow film fans, because together, we're all a team. We're all an ensemble. So this week, as we talked in the intro, we're talking best movie ensembles. So like a team effort in a movie. It could have theoretically one person that's kind of like the main actor over everything else, but this is ensemble movies. Like the best, it was originally going to be like best cast movies with just the widest net, but I think it's better if it's kind of groupings of best movie ensembles, not ensemble movies, but best movie ensembles. That's weird distinction, but I think there's a difference between best movie ensemble and best ensemble movies, if that makes sense.
This was a little tough just because that line is very, very thin. Because I know like you and I were texting back and forth. I was like, okay, so this, but not this. I'm like, yeah, more like switch that. I picked a bunch of movies with ensembles. I tried to stay away from like superhero movies for the most part, just because like I feel like those are the easy ones to go for.
Also, I won't say it, for most superhero movies, except for, one blatantly obvious one. I wonder what I mean by that. Most superhero movies aren't actually ensemble movies. They're like one main character with one or two quippy supporting characters. Even Avengers movies are supposed to be ensemble movies, but a lot of the times you have one character in particular that's leading everything else. Infinity War, it's Thanos. In the first Avengers in 2012, I'd say it's Captain America and Iron Man's movie more than anybody else. It's those two guys. And even at the ensemble for
Voltron
those
is Tony trying to clean up his own mess.
Yeah, Tony, once again, I'm getting on my high horse here with Tony. Anytime anything goes right, it's all him. Anytime anything goes wrong, it's a group effort. I'm going, oh, you're that guy. But also, like, as much as I like the Avengers movies, the ensemble's not as good compared to some other movie ensembles out there.
I agree.
I think one formula of movies that lends itself to having really, really good movie ensembles is mysteries, like murder mysteries, which is
Yeah.
why I've got 1, 2, 3 murder mysteries on my list. Go with the obvious one out of the way now. Knives Out.
I was gonna say.
We'll just get the obvious one out of the way now. Knives Out. Glass Onion has a pretty decent movie ensemble as well. I just liked the first Knives Out's cast better. I think there's much more interesting range there. You go from like Christopher Plummer to Ana de Armas to General Zod to Captain America to Laurie Strode. You get a whole bunch of eclectic characters, but all of them have such a unique identity. When I was looking at this, I was like, how well is the movie casted and how well do the characters interact with each other? Even in a little snippets, Knives Out has such unique characters, and I think that's both portrayal, but also an underrated aspect of the movie, I think, is the costume design. The costume design immediately makes you recognize who every character is, because they're, even in this picture that we got, they're all dressed so differently. They're dressed like a giant clue board, so you need to be able to immediately identify which piece is which I'm sure was not an accident. The ensemble for Knives Out, the first one, is just so good. Everyone plays their part so perfectly. Everyone plays off each other perfectly. Chris Evans just plays off everyone perfectly. He's a dick to his own family, but he's a conniving dick when he's working with Ana de Armas, like that, for that second that you think you can trust him. As I have done in the past, I could talk about Knives Out forever, but I'm sure it's somewhere in your consideration there, Josh.
Oh yeah, no, it was on my list too. Are you kidding me? I think because you and I had the discussion of like, okay, is technically Knives Out as the ensemble kind of cast that you and I are looking for, because technically Marta is the main character. She's the main character that we're following through the entire film. But I think and this would be kind of become a theme I end up going with, is while there is like a quote unquote main character, I think that everybody else involved is just as important. The movie doesn't work if you take a single person out of that cast. I think, I love that you can definitely feel the different kinds of families that are happening. You've got the older brother, the younger brother, the sister, and all that. I love that because they wouldn't be just like quote unquote supporting characters if all of their relationships with the grandfather weren't so well thought out, weren't so well explored in the movie. Knives Out is incredible. They do such a great job of making you care about what happens to everybody, not just Marta. I think it all circles around us not wanting Marta to be the one that ends up getting blamed for everything. But it definitely, it's Knives Out is almost perfect.
So, my next one, Knives Out, I'm sure took a more than a little bit of inspiration from this movie, just quite a bit, to the point of, I think it would have been cool if he was physically up to the challenge, if we got a Tim Curry cameo in Knives Out, because Clue is one of the best movie ensembles ever. Like, everyone is so perfect. Granted, Tim Curry is the MVP, but everyone else is so perfect. Everyone, like Clue, has a wardrobe and a personality that makes them easily identifiable and therefore memorable, and everyone plays it perfectly. It's just like a Clue board. All the suspects are there, and I love the fact that it's a choose your own ending. I think that works even better. I'm still sad, even though I wasn't alive for it, I'm still sad that Clue bombed in theaters, because it deserved better, and it has a lasting impact, primarily on theater nerds, but still, I think everyone's cast so perfectly in Clue, and everyone bounces off each other. But here's where the weird, oddly specific hot takes come into play. My third whodunit is arguably, and I die on this hill, one of the greatest casted movies of all time, James Gunn's Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's not a fight. I can't fight you on that at all. Like, yeah, absolutely.
Everyone just seems to think
that's not a hot take. That's not a hot take. That's just a fact.
Some people think this movie's terrible and dumb. Going, no.
It is. Okay, no. Let's not get mince words here. It is not a great movie. It is okay.
No. It is a great movie, and here's why.
No.
Here's why. Because Scooby-Doo, the James Gunn Scooby-Doo, James Gunn wrote it. He didn't direct it, although he almost did. James Gunn's Scooby-Doo was originally envisioned to be a hard R-rated Scooby-Doo parody movie.
You can tell. You
definitely can tell. If you ever want to know why the CGI monsters look so bad, it's because the budget for the CGI monsters was taken away at the last minute to put the CG elsewhere to make it a PG movie. We'll put it that way. But if you don't look at this as a Scooby-Doo movie and look at it as an homage to Scooby-Doo movies or a parody of Scooby-Doo movies, it fits even better. It fits perfectly. So many people crap on Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, and I'm going, y'all kind of missed the point. If you think he's not that interesting as a character, did you not watch Where Are You, Scooby-Doo? Fred is the most vanilla white bread character ever. He doesn't have any interesting traits. He invents traps to the point of, like, in later shows, like I think it's Mystery Inc., he has a thing. He loves traps themselves. Like, they make that an actual personality trait because that's it for the original show. Fred is not an interesting character. That's why they made him a meathead in the movie, and Freddie Prinze Jr. plays it perfectly. But you get that mixed with future Mrs. Freddie Prinze Jr., which I still think is the funniest thing ever. Sarah Michelle Gellar, former Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as Daphne. But again, that only works if it's a parody of Scooby-Doo. That works. You get, Linda Cardellini as Velma, and everyone realizes, oh yeah, Velma was the attractive one all along. We're all going, yeah, we told you. There's a Mount Rushmore of castings. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. J. Jonah Jameson as J.K. Simmons. But the first face that should be on the Mount Rushmore should be Matthew Lillard as Shaggy, because my God, that man just walked out of a cartoon and then promptly walked right back into it after Monsters Unleashed, because he's voiced Shaggy ever since then. He's been voicing him for like 20 years. That entire cast nails it perfectly. Now, I have heard the argument, and I kind of agree, that Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed should have come out first, and then Scooby-Doo should have been the sequel of, like, you get your stereotypical classic Scooby-Doo adventure, and then you get the breakup and coming back together in the sequel. I'm going, that's a good idea. But everyone is so perfectly cast. They play off each other so well as a loving homage to Scooby-Doo. It is so good. It pokes holes at the logic and stupidity, but in a loving way, of the original Scooby-Doo. It openly makes fun of the things that we all kind of make fun of. Like, what is Shaggy's favorite name? Like, come on now. We've all been making those jokes forever now. Honestly, I will die on the hill that Scooby-Doo has one of the greatest casts in movie history, and I will die for that cause.
So here's the thing. To me, that's not even like a hill dying. That's not a hot take.
That's why you're the co-host here, because you agree with me.
No, but like the casting is perfect. Absolutely, the movie is okay. If it's a late 90s, early 2000s, like CGI fest. So granted, yes, we know now that there are reasons for that, but at the same time, it's like it doesn't hit as hard as I think it could. But the casting is perfect. Matthew Lillard, like, the fact of the matter is that there was that like month period where there was memes that the soul of Shaggy took over Matt Lillard.
I had to use 2% of my power.
Like to the point of like the casting is so perfect that if you would have told me that that's what was happening, I would have believed you 100%. Yeah, no, perfect. It's perfect casting. Yeah, whoever they got to do the dog was pretty great too, man. Let's see. Let's dabble in a little bit of Lord of the Rings. I technically, that definitely goes
It's
under
got to
our
be
umbrella.
somewhere. It's got to be
It's got
somewhere.
to be somewhere. Let's not. I don't want to talk too much about it because I think you and I could go on forever about it. I think I love that, especially after the first one. At no point does it feel like any one group is getting shafted story wise. It feels like you're interested in every section of the story and every section of the ensemble. I love that even though they get split up towards the end of the first movie, it still feels like they're all a team doing this together. I love that even though technically they're all separated by thousands and thousands of miles, that every single person always feels like they're working towards the same goal. It's fantastic. I really love Lord of the Rings, and to me it's still one of the best casts ever. Taking a young Orlando Bloom before he was big, all the four hot guys that played the hobbits, they're still legends to this day. Elijah Wood is doing his thing and he cracks me up.
Elijah Wood has not aged since
No,
Return
he
of the
doesn't.
King.
He just doesn't.
He looks exactly the same. Like some of the hobbits have kind of aged, but others not so much. He really has not aged. I think Lord of the Rings beautifully falls into the category that a lot of other movies in this category kind of need to fall into, of if you can have a debate with your friends as to which is the best character in this group, I think that counts as a good movie ensemble. And there's always those discussions when it comes to Lord of the Rings. There shouldn't be. Your answer either needs to be Sam or Aragorn, or we shouldn't have this discussion because, yeah, everyone else is great. Aragorn is literally god tier amongst men, and Sam is the actual MVP. Frodo's just a whiny little twerp. Like,
oh yeah, so how you feel,
Frodo
buddy?
doesn't do anything. I get that it's a symbolic character, but Sam does the actual grunt work, and also doesn't cry and whine like a little baby for 3 whole movies. And also, he was justified in his thoughts about Gollum. Gollum should have died long ago.
Yes, he was. And like Merry and Pippin, I think I would be best friends with them. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, I would be the guy with them that would be like stealing from farmers and stuff like that. Like, that's like they're the best. I think Gimli and I would get along real well. It's such a fantastic cast. To this day, I think it's, and the fact that the movie still holds up still, that definitely helps quite a bit. Let's go. I'm going to throw this out. I think this counts for the first movie and the first movie alone. And that's because I hate all of the other movies in the series. The Fast and Furious movie has a pretty good cast, has a pretty good ensemble. They all have some pretty good chemistry together. It definitely is still more of a the Dom and oh my gosh, I always forget his actual name. But the two, the
Paul Walker,
Paul Walker's character, it's definitely their story, but like I definitely appreciate that they are filled with a pretty decent cast of characters around them. Now, what they don't do in the preceding movies is explore some of those characters as much as I would like to, but it's still Dom and it's still his family. Shut up. Okay. Anyway, moving on. I just felt like, Fast and Furious is one of those movies.
Just a quick side tangent because it's me. I've said before that I think Independence Day and Christmas Vacation secretly exist in the same universe. I also would like to believe that Fast and Furious and The Pacifier exist in the same universe. And
I can believe that.
That's what happens. Like Dom has to go into like a rehabilitation program, in which case he has to watch someone else's kids for a little bit and adopt them into his family.
I hate you so much.
He has the exact same wardrobe in both movies.
No, that's because he can only wear. It's crazy. I literally just watched it. We're talking about this now, but like I literally I think yesterday watched like a 2-hour video about like how cringy Vin Diesel is in real life. And
he's so weird.
So great.
We're doing a live. We're doing a live,
guys.
As he forgets to turn his phone off.
I put when he's filming, he's doing a live on the red carpet and then forgets like while he's doing what he's doing and puts it in his pocket and just walks and like it's so great. Anyway, that's a long side tangent, but yeah,
that's not even us talking about him trying to do singing. That's
oh dude, or that great interview. How am I supposed to do this interview when she's so gorgeous? Like that's not like I can't do this, guys. Like, gosh, get out of here, you crazy person. You're married. You shouldn't be.
Is he?
That. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's married since like 2007.
To that reporter now.
No, definitely not. She was. You can tell, like towards the end of that video, she is not okay.
So I tried to just live Google, and instead of Vin Diesel, it shows up Vin Decoder. I'm like, what?
I love how we talk about like live Googling, like we do this live.
He's got 3 kids.
Yeah, I know that. Maybe they got
after that interview.
Yeah, probably. He's a wildly cringy person.
Well, if you need to know about Vin Decoders.
But yeah, the first the Fast and Furious movie is when it comes to ensemble casts, it is pretty good.
So we mentioned earlier Lord of the Rings. That is heralded as one of the greatest trilogies of all time. I think there's another trilogy that has an incredible ensemble throughout, and unfortunately, due to some characters no longer being alive, we can't really go back to that, although they have tried with the Oceans trilogy.
Yes, I'm so glad we're talking about this.
Why wouldn't we talk about this? This was like one of the first things that popped in my head of just going, oh yeah.
Agreed.
Oceans movies, minus Oceans 8, which isn't bad, but like, come on, man. The original has George Clooney, Brad Pitt constantly eating or sleeping, Matt Damon, also known as Matt Damon. You have a movie that you've got Casey Affleck and Matt Damon, but not Ben. Oh, like, never introduced Ben at all.
Yeah, ever.
You get the Hawaii Five-0 guy. I'm sorry, I know he's been in other stuff, but when I look at the guy that's always with Casey Affleck, I'm going, oh yeah, Hawaii Five-0, and that's about it.
Yeah. You've got the current War Machine. He's in that.
He is attempting an accent.
He's in 11. I know that for sure. I can't remember.
No, he's in all of them. He is attempting an accent.
It is, but like he's also like one of those guys. I was like, I feel like I would meet you on the street one day and go, we could get a beer sometime, but I don't know if I trust you ever.
Oh, you mean like most of the people in Oceans?
That's fair. That's fair. I just had ADHD brain. Do you remember those shirts growing up in like high school? There was like, I'm a bomb diffuser. If you see me running, run. No. Okay. Anyway,
I know like those type of like funny shirts, but that type of shirt, what? How was that ever allowed in schools?
I mean,
you were homeschooled, so
I was homeschooled, so of course it was allowed in my school.
It was a real hit with the neighbors.
Yep. I was also the only attractive kid in my class, also the ugliest kid in my class.
You were both valedictorian and the one that just barely squeaked out of class.
No, I was never the
valedictorian. All right, let's get all the homeschooler jokes out now. When your parents talk to each other, it's a parent-teacher conference. How many homeschoolers take the screw in a light bulb? 1, because they have no friends.
Hey, that's mean.
What's your favorite VeggieTales episode?
I had friends. Leave me alone.
So when did Bible Man officially jump the shark for you? All the homeschooler questions.
Much like Larry Boy, I now also have no need for a hairbrush. Got him.
In that situation, does that make me the peach because I have hair?
All right, well, this is a tangent we're on.
Okay, quick side tangent though. Did
off of the side tangent we're currently
any
on.
other kids that grew up with VeggieTales learn what the IRS is from VeggieTales because of the Christmas one and IRS stealing his last cookie? And I'm just going, I don't get it. I watch it now. VeggieTales, you are freaking geniuses.
They are, and like, okay, it was fun. We'll stay on this side just a little bit longer. It was really cool when Quarter Crew had one of the main animators from VeggieTales come on, and he was like, yeah, like some of their stuff is actual like top tier. It is like groundbreaking for the time.
It predates
like,
Toy Story by 2 years.
Yes. It's like, and stuff like, and I loved it when Nico was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize that like they don't actually have hands, but you can, like, it feels like they do. It's, yeah. Anyway, VeggieTales is great.
Oceans.
Ocean's 11 though is the VeggieTales of the Thief world. I don't know. I don't know how to connect those dots.
Okay. So when the Oceans guys are stealing something from Tony Benedict because he shook Frank Sinatra's hand, they're asking, "Are you my neighbor?"
I hate you so much.
And then right before they steal and do the heist, they ask, "Where's God when I'm scared?" And then they call their friend Lyle the Friendly Viking.
Oh my gosh.
That's a pull.
That's some stretches for you there,
That's
buddy.
a pull. That's one of the worst VeggieTales episodes too. Oh, come on! I could have made a segue easily between Lord of the Sporks and Lord of the Rings. Come on, with the
Dude,
it was Lord of the Beans. It was Lord of the Beans with the evil sporks.
What's guarding them? Oh, it's these terrifying creatures. Half spoon, half fork.
And this is why you tune in, people. And this is why you tune in. We start with the best of intentions.
Okay, but like I think the issue is you and I have both grew up on VeggieTales and Bible Man, which is like there's people doing
one has aged incredibly well, and one is Bible Man.
Yeah. Oh man.
Hey, those lightsaber effects actually still kind of hold up.
They do absolutely, and like there's some actual like really good jokes,
and yeah,
like, unnecessarily good,
dude.
like,
whenever the narrator shows up and tells where they are, those little blurbs of what the location is, like
so good,
of like villain's hideout. How did we afford this in the budget? I'm going, oh, that's pretty good. Okay,
like I like there's a line from Bible Man at some point that he's like, yeah, you can always trust a man in spandex, and I was like, okay, buddy, whatever you say.
Speaking of a man in spandex, the little Asian guy that helps them break into the vault in either the 11 or 13 with the carpet. Is that 13? I think.
Oh my gosh,
13 is my favorite, so I should remember that.
No, 11. Are you talking about the guy that does like the backflips around the vault?
Yeah. Is
that's 11.
That's 11? Okay.
You know, because he gets his hand smashed.
Yeah.
And he's like, he overshoots a couple times. And yeah. That's 11. Hey, we circle back. Yeah. Yeah. Ocean's
like
11
Doug from Up. We got lost and confused in the woods, but we got back on the trail after chasing the squirrel.
I think it's crazy to me that sometimes I forget like George Clooney and Brad Pitt are in those movies, but that's only because like their characters are so specific to those films that like, I mean, they're doing versions of those characters in other movies, but like that is not what I'm seeing on the screen. Is not George Clooney, is not Brad Pitt. It's those characters, which is like that's definitely a testament. I think everyone in those movies really it's a testament to those films of like I don't feel like I'm watching that actor in another movie, which is yeah okay, Josh. That's how every movie works. That's why actors are good at the job.
Not all of them.
But still, it's definitely a testament to those movies that I feel like I'm watching those characters and not like a movie that these actors happen to be in.
All right, I got 5 more, Josh. We're halfway through my list. You could probably crank out a couple, can't you?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 7, so I can crack. You know what? I've got some related. I got 2 related ones. I got a twofer. Twofer, as my parents say for some reason. So there was like, and you might fight me on this. I don't know, but this is
I said Scooby Doo earlier.
That's fine. But I have a soft spot in my for the Valentine's Day movie and the New Year's Eve movie. Um, Completely stacked cast for both of them. You follow multiple stories through both movies. And look, you can look weird all you want, but like I will always have a soft spot for like actually good like romantic comedies or like romance type movies. And both of those films do a really really good job. I know, Lucy, I'm just as upset as you are. But yeah, it's to me, love those, like, to the point where I think because it was Valentine's Day, um
New
then
Year's
New
Eve.
Year's Eve, and then
I think that was it.
What to Expect. Well, no, because then they did What to Expect When Expecting.
That's one of
And I
those
love
type
all
of
three.
like mega cast movies.
Yeah, and which like mega cast, like ensembles, and but I appreciate that it wasn't like, all right, cool, we're gonna have this massive cast and they're all gonna converge on one story. It's that we have this massive cast, and yes, they can kind of intermingle a little bit, but we're watching four different stories that have the same theme.
So this might not count on a technicality because it's just like two characters and are the focus, mainly one character, but it does have a huge cast, and you bring up Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve makes me think about it. One of my favorite rom-coms of all time, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, because it's got a massive cast that take up a good chunk of time, but it's still, I don't know if I'd throw this in that category because it's mainly still the one person's movie more than anything else.
And I think that's why like a lot of these films are have a tendency to be more the excuse me, the like the mystery, the comedy, or the action film, because romance doesn't necessarily akin itself to having a big cast with with lots of stories and well developed characters, for better for worse. It's usually we're following two people and there happen to be a bunch of side characters. But yeah, so now I'm down to 5. That was easy. Got a twofer.
Super easy. Barely an inconvenience.
I hate it. Thanks, I hate it.
For those people that have already seen that episode. Let me see. Let me get the Suicide Squad out of the way now because it's the graphic, and also that means the rest of mine I can lump into one giant category. But this could also be my bridge to that category because the Suicide Squad is both a superhero movie and a comedy. From here on out, it's all comedies because comedies, I think, rely on ensembles. But the Suicide Squad is so much more than just a comedy. Like Josh and I have talked about many times on the podcast of, yeah, you've got a dude that's all dressed in polka dots, but at the same time, this is the same movie with a giant killer shark and one of the most profound lines I have ever heard in a superhero movie of, why rats, Dad? Because rats are the most lowly, despised creatures in the universe. If they have a purpose, so must we all. And I'm going, this is the same movie where you shot a man's junk off. Okay, sure. Let's go there. You have John Cena in a toilet bowl and his whitey tighties. Sure, let's just throw all kinds of stuff in the bowl here. But this has such a great ensemble cast. The previously mentioned John Cena as Peacemaker. So good, in fact, that he got his own spin-off show. James Gunn, where's any details about Peacemaker Season 2, please? Idris Elba as, I'm totally not Deadshot. I swear, guys, I'm totally my own unique character. I just also happen to have special guns that never miss. You get David Dashmalchian as Polka Dot. You get Danielle Melchior, I believe is how you pronounce the name, as Ratcatcher 2. Briefly, cast members from the first Suicide Squad. And I'll say it now, the best version of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn to date.
Oh, yeah.
And the one with the most growth of her finally realizing that Joker is actually bad for her, and not wanting to repeat the same trends. It's the most growth and development we've ever gotten from Harley in live action. The whole cast is just stellar. Sylvester Stallone as King Shark,
which was, gosh, what a big surprise. Way to hold that back from us, because that is one of those, like, if I saw that on paper, I would have been like, oh, I don't like that at all. But then, like, you hear it first, then they're like, Sylvester Stallone, and you're like, oh, that's great. I actually really like that. Yeah, fantastic casting. I love that we technically have two whole ensembles, and they go through an entire like meet the cast kind of situation, like they do in the first Suicide Squad, really. But like, I love that we do it twice and it's all meaningful and stuff like that. It's fantastic. I love the Suicide Squad is easily still, I think, at very least top 3, if not one of my favorite superhero movies of the recent years.
I'll piggyback off of this movie is not the Suicide Squad, but you could almost subtitle this movie as the Suicide Squad. So in that case, it would be Tropic Thunder, the Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Because boy, do they share a surprising amount of similarities there, actually. A crew unknowingly goes into a jungle location thinking their mission is one thing, and in reality it's something completely separate, and then it's a satire of the genre that it's in the entire time while subverting expectations. I really, really love Tropic Thunder. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time. And I think that's probably because of the variation in actors in it. Everyone is doing their own very specific but perfect thing for the movie. You get Ben Stiller. Honestly, I think it's probably my favorite Ben Stiller acted and directed movie. Ben Stiller is perfect. Jay Baruchel is perfect as the rookie that has done all the work because he actually cares about the production. Then you get the part that really does not hold up, Robert Downey Jr. Actually, no, the part that really does not hold up that more people really should be calling attention to is the Simple Jack part with Ben Stiller going, let's not do that. And then Jack Black as the man obsessed with M&Ms is perfect. I love it. No, not M&Ms. Jelly beans. I'm going, that explains a lot of Jack Black, if we're being honest. Just look at Tenacious D. That makes sense. But then you get like all the outside characters for this ensemble. You get arguably Tom Cruise's funniest performance to date as Les Grossman. Matthew McConaughey as the complete himbo that he is, being his agent of, you shot a panda? Amanda? Okay. Or Nick Nolte as the quote-unquote war vet that inspired the book. Danny McBride, future Halloween 2018 writer Danny McBride. I'm gonna light this place up like it's the 4th of July. And just the whole explosions. I'm just going, this guy's gonna write a Halloween trilogy someday. God help us.
Yeah, that's what I had Tropic Thunder on my list as well, just because it really does is comedies are the epitome of the ensemble cast, and you have every character that is can be memorable. Wow, don't know why
English. Do you speak it? Honorable mention Pulp Fiction.
No. I give nothing to Pulp Fiction.
It's because you have a hate on for Quentin Tarantino.
I do not. Okay. But I feel like that, like me not liking most of his movies is even though, and that segues me too pretty well here, because Tropic Thunder is great, but I can't talk about it to the effect that you can. Movie I can talk about, even though I do not like the movie, The Hateful Eight has a fantastic ensemble cast.
Funny, that's funny that you're mentioning it.
Yeah, look, for those that have been listening for a while, you know that I'm not the biggest Tarantino guy. And to be fair, I went into the Hateful Eight kind of at least hopeful of like, I love a good, quote unquote mystery. I love a good Western. And this kind of meets it in the middle. And honestly, I want to say the first, because this movie's like almost 3 hours, I think, if I remember right.
Oh, it's a long movie.
Yeah. The first hour and a half, I was on board. I was having a great time. And then the last like 30, 40 minutes, it just devolves into something that was not the movie that I think that it promises itself to be, that it's leading up to be. And I can hear you, Tarantino lovers. That's the point. That's the twist. It flips it on the head. That's what makes it interesting. No, that's what makes it disappointing. I am not going to continue to crap on the movie. But it's fantastic. The ensemble is perfect. the one thing I will always give Tarantino movies is they are well casted and very well acted, and that absolutely shows itself in The Hateful Eight.
How many more you got? I got 3.
I have 3 as well.
Perfect. We may have some crossover here. I'm not entirely sure.
I maybe
One that could fall into the category of comedy, but also could fall into a couple different categories. Any good movie could fall into multiple categories.
Mm-hmm.
And this is honestly one of the most iconic movies of all time. But I think a good portion of that is, yes, you do have a central protagonist, but it's everyone else around that protagonist that are the most memorable aspects of the movie. And that is The Princess Bride.
Hey, oh yeah, that's a good call.
Good. We do have some separation here. Yes,
we
do. Cary Elwes is great as Wesley. Like that's an iconic role for him. Probably his most famous role besides the first Saw movie and being
probably
Pierre Despereaux in a couple episodes of Psych, because, that's what he's really known for. He's great. But tell me you don't immediately think of Andre the Giant instead when people say Princess Bride, or my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Are you the six-fingered man? Do you start all your conversations in such a way? Like, it's all the side characters and everyone else around Wesley that make the story. It's the ensemble. Fezziwig is Andre the Giant's character, right? Then who is the never make a wager with Sicilian when death is on the line?
Death is on the line.
What is his name?
Perfect. So good. I could talk about Princess Bride all the time, but like the giant, the giant rats, the way
the rodents of unusual size,
the rodents of unusual size, the pun off that they do, or the poems. They're like, no more poetry. So good. I love it. I think that it does like you said, it fills out very well. Like, yes, Wesley and Buttercup. It took me a second. Are like definitely the focus. It is a love story after all, but the movie does not feel as whimsical, I think, without all of the other characters. And you can pretty much even include the grandfather and the sick nephew. I know the difference.
Yeah. Just a savage.
Why not? But yeah, like everybody is important to that story, and I think the ensemble cast is fantastic on that. It's the Princess Bride is up there like Mount Rushmore of movies. So
it's y'all can say anything you want by it, but Princess Bride is a perfect movie. There is nothing to change about it whatsoever. It is a perfect movie with no flaws whatsoever, no leaps in logic, no Deus Ex Machina. I wish we had a Holocaust coat. You mean like this one? There's nothing wrong with it whatsoever. Also, all the Billy Crystal lines are just fantastic.
Oh, Billy Crystal, like that was my
good.
That was my introduction to Billy. And like, gosh, man, he is so good. Like to this day, my mom and I quote, have fun storming the castle. You think they'll make it? Not a chance. Bye.
You witch. I'm not a witch. I'm your wife. Like,
just so good.
Oh, Princess Bride. That was not on your list though.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
I actually, you know what? I can do a transition, right? So just like Princess Bride, it definitely has a main character, but it is all of the side and side characters that kind of fill up the world and make it. They're the ones that make the story interesting. While it is not one of my favorite movies, it is one of my most quoted movies. Both of the Anchorman films have a stacked cast.
Yeah, they do.
They are not great movies, but it is definitely all about Ron Burgundy, but Ron Burgundy is nothing without his news team, and it definitely feels that way as far as from a casting perspective as well. I think that if this was just a Evan Almighty situation where he's the only person that's being wacky, it doesn't work. The fact that you have Brick, who likes lamps and randomly shows up with grenades in his hands. Like, and that, they have to talk Ron down from crying about being blind, and that's why he drank a whole bottle of ketchup. Like, it is such a wild, like hilarious, very quotable movie that I think definitely, if the casting wasn't so strong, the ensemble just wouldn't work. It would be a this is Ron Burgundy. He's crazy. He's insane. And there's nobody else that's interesting in this film. Whereas, like, everybody's interesting in the Anchorman 2 films because the ensemble. It's fantastic. Love them both.
Watch this segue. Holy cow. So Anchorman, Anchorman is like one of the most quotable and beloved comedies of the 2000s. I didn't put Anchorman, but I put another movie that I feel like doesn't get talked about enough because it came out the same year as Anchorman, and Anchorman probably overshadowed Dodgeball, a true underdog story success. And people don't talk about how good of an ensemble that is. Yes, it's a Vince Vaughn movie, but you got Justin Long, as I literally Google it. Justin Long's character's name is Justin. Really?
Love it.
Love when movies do that. You have Jason. Oh yeah, Jason Bateman's in that. I forgot about that. Jason Bateman's one of the commentators at the end. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it works out for him. I forgot about that. You have Alan Tudyk in one of his like rare, like actually like live action roles. Normally, I think of him as an animated guy, except for Tucker and Dale versus Evil, in which case he is perfect. You have the dude that's totally 100% in a loving relationship. L's for love, honey. No, L's for something else. Everyone's got their own love language. It's okay. Vince Vaughn is perfect.
I haven't watched Dodgeball in a while. I'm sorry. This is getting me.
Oddly enough, Dodgeball is one of Heather's favorite comedies. And when I first met her, I was like,
really?
Yeah.
Really? Sweet little Heather. There's no way.
That surprised me when we first started dating. I was like,
yeah.
Dodgeball. Really? She's like, yeah. I've seen Dodgeball a lot. I'm like,
that would be like, do you remember there's that Mystery Men movie with Ben Stiller? Equally would be like, if Heather was like, yeah, Mystery Men's my favorite movie of all time.
But at least people have heard of Dodgeball. No one talks about Mystery Men nowadays.
Mystery Men is fantastic.
No one talks about it though.
Fair enough. But yeah, Dodgeball is fantastic. Is super great. That's so wild that Heather loves it so much.
All right. You got was this your last one?
My last comedy, and then I got one more movie. Grown Ups is one of those movies for me that I actually really enjoyed.
Of course you do.
First couple times. I don't like the sequel. The sequel is not as funny. It's definitely like them trying to like, hey, Grown Ups made a bunch of movies. Let's do another one of these, because it really is.
Let's just get a paid vacation somewhere.
Yeah, but the movie is absolutely exactly what it portrays itself to be. It is a bunch of friends getting back together for some crazy times, and that's absolutely, like, all these guys are good friends in real life, and you can tell that the chemistry is out the world with all of them. I genuinely, the Grown Ups is so entertaining. It is one of the you can talk crap about all you want. Like, I'm not the biggest Adam Sandler guy. I don't like a lot of his films, but for whatever Grown Ups hit me at a specific time, I'm like, you know what? I enjoy the crap out of this. This is stupid, and I love it.
Yeah, that sounds like a hit Josh at a certain time type of comedy. Hot Rod.
Hey, no. Hot Rod is perfect. You don't come at Hot Rod.
Alrighty, so my last one. You could have had just one of these character types, and it would have been funny. But the fact that there's, at one point, 4 of them, and their clan gets even bigger. The recipe for this movie works so well that they just kind of copied and pasted that recipe for the TV show, which is still going strong to this day, for What We Do in the Shadows. It had to be there somewhere, because
yes, it did.
Honestly, it's the funniest Taika Waititi has ever been, but it's everyone else around him that has such distinct personalities that make it feel so, I don't want to say believable, because it's New Zealand vampires, but it works. It's funny because of the character interactions. It's funny because of the ensemble. You have Taika Waititi, who is quote unquote the sensible one, putting the newspaper down before he murders somebody. Then you've got Deacon. You're a cool guy and all, but you need to start pulling your weight. Well, I'm glad to hear you think I'm a cool guy. No, that's not what we're talking. I know what you're talking about, but
that's not what you need to take away from this.
But then let's be honest. The best character of What We Do in the Shadows is introduced later with the badass that is Stu. Just Stu needed his own movie or TV show in general. Stu is the guy that just kind of gets dragged to the party, but by the end of it is the life of the party. Like, just by being there. Also, because it's me, there's a scene where, like, the vampires show that they can put someone under a hypnotic spell and people won't pay attention. So the dude that introduces Stu to the group, the first guy that they bite, he's like a modern guy. And so this guy brings Stu into the group and says hi, whatever else. So he hypnotizes Stu and he's like talking to the camera. My brain has always been under the impression that Stu was not actually hypnotized in that moment, and he's just kind of processing all the knowledge that's being said, but he's not actually under the influence of everything. So when his friend turns to the camera and goes, yeah, I can't bite Stu. He's my mate, but he doesn't really know that I'm a vampire, and all these people that I'm hanging out with are vampires. I just believe that Stu is just that deadpan that he's just like, oh, this is my life now. And that makes that scene work better if he's not under a trance. But
yes,
that whole cast is just... And then there was Peter. And you get their typical Nosferatu-looking vampire who just as funny as everyone else.
Like, he never leaves the basement either. He just stays there. So good.
Oh, we're going to have a flat... We're going to have a flat meeting?
That's not even getting into, like, the werewolves they run into either. Like, which is... perfect. Love the werewolves.
Werewolves, not swearwolves.
Werewolves. I'm so glad that you convinced me over time to you chipped away at my armor to finally watch.
Because it's so you. It's so both of us.
So good. It's such my form of comedy too. My last but not least, it'd be hard to get out of this without talking about Bullet Train. I will take every opportunity I can to talk about Bullet Train. I think this is this is a layup. Yes, it is, starring Brad Pitt, but he is certainly not the main character of the story. I think this definitely has like a Knives Out-esque feeling where, yes, it is Brad Pitt's story. It is his character story, but he is involved, and then everybody else moves the story along. Brad Pitt's character is just kind of like super unlucky for an hour and a half of movie time, and that it is what it is. But
everything happens around him, but not necessarily to him.
Yes, it's so good. I really, really liked Bullet Train. I'm glad that it turned out to be the kind of movie that it turned out to be. It could have been a lot worse. But yeah, Bullet Train's fantastic. Great cast. It is the movie, I think, at least for me, that turned me around on Aaron Taylor Johnson, which is oddly not as high of a bar as I thought it was. He's pretty great though. But yeah, everybody's acting their butts off. It's a fantastic movie.
Well, what do you guys think? What are some of the best movie ensembles of all time? What are your favorite grouping of characters that are in a movie together? Let us know down in the comments below. We always like hearing from you guys. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Spotify, Google Podcasts, or YouTube. And if you haven't already, subscribe to us on YouTube and share us with all your fellow film fans. And as always, stay sharp, movie guys and gals.